The treatment of Tommy Robinson has got worse in HMP Woodhill. I'm now entirely convinced that they're trying to mentally destroy this man. And I think that's something that should not be allowed to happen by this country. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe. But more importantly, hit the bell notification icon. It's the best way to absolutely guarantee you get all my videos as soon as they are released. Well, we have been in this situation for quite some time, haven't we? With Tommy Robinson coming under significant attack. I think it's reasonable to say that what is happening to him now constitutes torture. Let me give you an update as I understand it. Now, I have to say, once again, I've said this a few times, I don't know the man, though. I've spoken to him on the phone a couple of times. I've never met him. And certainly I'm not part of his organisation, so I can't speak for them. But this is my understanding of the update as it comes from HMP Woodhill. Clearly, the Home Office now are extremely concerned that he's running his political operation from inside a prison. By the way, if he was running an Islamist cell from inside the prison, they'd be perfectly happy with that. But just because he's doing something to fight back for patriotic values, they don't like it. So he was not allowed to receive emails. Presumably, his letters are being highly censored. The number of people he can see has significantly reduced. First of all, the Home Office said that everyone would have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. We've now worked out that some people will not be allowed to visit him at all on the grounds that what they say is likely to leak. Now, I've said to you right from the outset that as a journalist, if I visit him in prison, and I'm not going to, but if I visit him in prison, then I would want to leak all the information. I would sign the NDA and then just tear it up and send it to the Home Office, simply because I think it's important as a journalist to stand up to public authorities when they're behaving badly. But anyway, that is something which I think is going to exacerbate the PTSD which he has had already from previous prison experiences. Okay, now, when you are being treated for PTSD, there's a lot of stuff on TikTok, by the way, about this, and about mental health nurses saying that you need a couple of things. You need to feel like you're part of a community. You need to get regular exercise, and you need quality food. Okay, so what have they done to Tommy Robinson? They've now restricted him to only 2 visits per week. He used to have 3 people per day. That is an extremely serious thing, and it's cutting him off. Add into that the fact that there is also the issue with the emails and with the letters, and you start to see that level of isolation really being ramped up and really becoming significant. Next, let's ask yourself about this. What about the situation whereby he's not allowed to exercise properly? What is it? He only exercised a couple of times, and he's not, and that's, you know, he doesn't really interact with other prisoners. That could be a significant problem as well, adding to that level of isolation. But the thing is about the food, now I've got some good news. My understanding is that the canned food that he was living off was only cancelled for about a week. That's pretty good news, I would suggest, because it means he's back onto it. But what they were saying was that that he was living off cans of fish. They didn't say whether it's tuna or salmon. One would assume it's tuna because it's cheaper. But what happened, remember last time, and I know I've said this to you loads of times, but for those of you who are new viewers, hello, by the way, I just want to remind you that when he was in prison on one occasion, he was given piles of food deliberately delivered by people who appeared to be, who claimed to be Muslim. The reason I say that is because clearly, you know, he wasn't able to check their ID cards and they might have just been winding him up. But of course, when he's having his food delivered to his cell and they're going, there you go, Tommy, that's one special for you, and they appear to be a Muslim, then clearly, at best, the food's going to be nasty. At worst, it could be actively dangerous. And by the way, it could be impossible to work out the two. I gave the example of somebody, if somebody spits in your dinner, then it's unpleasant. But if they've got hepatitis, then it becomes potentially quite a serious problem. There's also issues around HIV, though it would be quite hard for you to get HIV from spit, particularly outside the family, outside the body. But, you know, it's still disgusting, isn't it? And God knows what other bodily fluids could have been put in. And some downstairs become quite dangerous, if I can say that politely. Well, look, Tommy Robinson is clearly quite a tough guy. And I accept that, and I laud him for that. But nobody is going to be able to do this forever. My understanding is that people who've seen him in prison have noticed that he's developed a bit of a tic, and that obviously is a nervous response to PTSD, and there are other issues as well. Although, to be fair, the source I spoke to did say that at the same time that the tic gets better as he talks to people, which I suppose simply stands up what I was saying earlier about this whole issue with PTSD. I feel like this man is being blamed for the ills of the world. And I'll tell you what the ills of the world are, in my view. They are that we as a country are starting to lose the battle on persuading people to accept uncontrolled immigration. The government, the police, the Home Office want the country overrun with immigration in order to drive down wages, to subjugate the British people and allow us to sell out to places like Europe and the UN and the international courts. I think that argument is starting to fail. How many of you are angry already? Now, look, Keir Starmer's got 4 years left, or the Labour Party's got 4 years left, and I have to say to you, I fear that what they'll do is they'll increase the level of uncontrolled immigration. Sorry, you can't increase the level of uncontrolled immigration. We have virtually uncontrolled immigration now. They'll have completely uncontrolled immigration. They will not put in emergency legislation about the Gaza situation. And just to remind you what is going on in Gaza. Now the war's over, we are putting in a refugee scheme for them. Well, we're not, are we? What's happening is we have got the Ukrainian refugee scheme, which not many Ukrainians actually took up. As I've said before, they've mostly gone to places like Moldova, but now the Gazans are allowed to use the Ukrainian scheme. They can come to Britain, £500 a month each, plus their accommodation, all the money they want, free university tuition. Your kids won't get university tuition, but if you are a T from Gaza, then you'll be entitled to it. And by the way, let me say something else. And that will cause us significant problems. The Gazans will decamp to London now, which will solve many of the problems for Donald Trump. But let me tell you something that I discovered amazing about Chisinau, Moldova. Right, this week there have been protests outside the embassies of various countries in favour of Ukraine. The Moldovan people have begun telling the Ukrainians to leave the country because they will not allow you to fly the flag of a different country in their country. Think about that. Can you imagine in Britain somebody going, look, I support you in the war, I really do. I support you 100%. I support your right to come to this country, but get your flag down. The only flag that we fly in Moldova is Moldova. Can you imagine that happening in Britain? You'd be branded a racist. Gazan flags absolutely everywhere. People do not support the United Kingdom are brought into the country to do it. Moldovans are just saying, you know what, get out. And actually, I have to say, Moldovans do not believe in a multicultural society. They believe very simply in the following belief, which is that one culture wins and another loses. Bradford is a Pakistani city now. Accept it, right? That is life. Now, whether you like that or not, it's simply a fact. I had a very good friend of mine. He is a good friend of mine, actually. And he didn't mean it to sound in the way that it sounded. He said, look, there's no point in anyone selecting a white person to run for Mayor of London anymore. It's unacceptable for a white person to win. Can you imagine the level of racism of that? And by the way, the guy who said it didn't mean it like that. He was just telling you about a reality of a situation and where we are genuinely up to in this country and what we're doing. By the way, the person that produces the show is not sat behind the camera today. Ergo, I'm going to have to keep looking at my watch to work out how long I've been talking for. But now, I genuinely think the following thing. I accept, well, okay, I'll tell you what, let's pretend I accept that Tommy Robinson, has to be in prison. I accept that he has to be punished. I accept, or pretend to accept, that he can't go to a Category C prison. Then why can't we say, let's give him early release now on a tag? Because what is this costing the taxpayer to do this? I don't believe that there's any argument whatsoever to keep him in prison. I think that what's happening now is an attempt to destroy him. And James Timpson potentially has blood on his hands. He is, how establishment is that? His dad owns Timpson's, you know, the key cutting place. His brother was a Conservative MP. He's a Labour peer. I mean, that's just absolutely, you know, just all in on it. By the way, the other thing that makes me laugh about Timpson's is they give jobs to ex-offenders. Brilliant idea. Let's get them cutting keys. What? Ah! Mind you, apparently there's no evidence that's caused too many problems. So maybe I'll man Timpson's right. But James Timpson potentially has blood on his hands over this. It's time to release Tommy Robinson. It's time to accept that if he needed to be punished, that punishment has taken place. And what is happening now is you are attempting to destroy the man. And remember, it's only a civil offence anyway. It's not a criminal offence. Now, people shouldn't break the law. And by the way, if somebody defames you and breaks civil law, then, you know, that's going to be pretty upsetting for you. But I think that it's very rare for the punishment for that to go to prison. It's exactly the same as Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was the only man in the federal penal system who had been done for a misdemeanor rather than a felony. What does that tell you about the politicisation of our courts? But of course, we have a self-selecting judiciary now. You have no power over the selection of judges. They select themselves. And that's why we are getting more and more of this shambles, more and more of this disgrace, more and more of all these bad things happening. I just want to tell you, by the way, that YouTube have told me off because they keep saying that they need to insert ad breaks into my videos. And because I talk at 100 miles an hour, they've got nowhere to put them in. I don't know what happened there. It may well have run an advert. It may well not have done. But anyway, Tommy Robinson is a patriot for this country. He's made mistakes in the past. He shouldn't have broken civil law. But it's now time to end that punishment of him. And also, I'm going to say to you, we talk constantly about the right to family life, don't we? What about the right of Tommy's children? You know, banned from seeing him because potentially they may be political competents themselves. I think that they should have the right to family life. And when you are able to run over a 7-year-old and stay in the country and not be deported because it would make your cat sad, then I think it's also true to say that you should be able to see your father, even though he's in prison, whatever you think of the man. Okay, until next time, arrivederci and goodbye.